At 17, my family tried to have me declared legally insane because I refused to join the family business. My uncle said, "We'll break you eventually." I disappeared for 12 years. Last month, I returned, with a secret that could end them all. My cousin collapsed when he saw what I brought. My father just whispered, "You were never supposed to know. Let me take you back." Family dinner, 2011. Me, 17, finishing high school with decent grades. Nothing special, but enough to get into community college. That's when Daryl, my father, slid a folder across the dinner table. The family business paperwork. Construction company 3 generations deep. "Sign here, son. Your future's all planned out." I said no. The silence that followed? That was the sound of my entire family realizing I wasn't going to fall in line. My cousin Orlando snickered. "Poor Gary doesn't have the balls for real work," he muttered. My father's face went that specific shade of red I'd grown to fear. My mother Miranda looked down at her plate like it contained the secrets of the universe. But my Uncle Javier? That calculating stare never left my face. Not once. That dinner was the beginning of the end. See, refusing the family business wasn't just disappointing my father. It was rejecting a legacy. A legacy built on cutting corners, bribing inspectors, and using materials so cheap they'd crumble in a strong wind. I'd seen the books, heard the late-night conversations, watched workers get paid under the table, the receipts for materials that never actually arrived on site. I knew what they were, what they did. You think I was being dramatic? Judgmental? Let me tell you about the apartment complex they finished the year before. 3 floors, 30 units. Electrical work done by a guy who knows a guy without permits. Plumbing that leaked from day one. Foundation that already showed cracks. People lived there. But that wasn't my problem, according to Daryl. The family's problem was me. The weeks after that dinner, everything changed. My phone mysteriously disappeared. Internet access restricted. Car privileges revoked. For my safety. My room? Searched daily. For what? They never said. Just concerned about my mental state, they claimed. My mother started watching me eat, like she was afraid I'd choke myself or something. Started talking about how emotional teenagers can be, how sometimes they need special help to get through difficult phases. Let that sink in. Special help. Orlando stopped by more often, always finding reasons to remind me how the business was booming, how I was throwing away my guaranteed future, how not everyone gets opportunities handed to them, all while showing off his new watch, new truck, new everything. Blood money bought a lot of toys, but it was Javier who scared me the most. Never raised his voice, never made direct threats, just these quiet little comments about how family takes care of its own, how sometimes people don't know what's good for them, how young men can make rash decisions when their minds aren't right. Not right. I started finding pamphlets around the house, mental health facilities, therapeutic boarding schools, places for troubled teens. One night I overheard them in the garage, Miranda crying, Daryl talking about involuntary commitment, legal guardianship extensions, Javier saying sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. They were going to lock me up for refusing to join their crooked business. The next day, Javier cornered me in the hallway, told me they were just trying to help, that my behavior was concerning everyone, that my paranoia about the family business was a sign of something deeper. Then he smiled. "We'll break you eventually," he said. "Everyone breaks." That night I couldn't sleep, kept thinking about those facilities in the pamphlets, the sedatives, the therapy to convince me I was delusional, the months or years trapped until I either truly went crazy or gave in. I checked my window. New locks installed while I was at school. When? How had I not noticed? I was running out of time. 3 a.m. I pried open the window with a screwdriver stolen from the garage days earlier. Took only what I could carry in one backpack. Some clothes, my birth certificate I'd stolen from my parents' files months ago. My phone they'd confiscated, but I'd replaced with a dummy, the old laptop I'd hidden under a floorboard that contained photos, documents, evidence of everything they'd done. I left through the backyard. No note, no goodbye, just gone. That was 12 years ago. 12 years of looking over my shoulder, working cash jobs, sleeping in shelters, then shitty apartments with 5 roommates, community college classes when I could afford them. No social media, no contact with anyone from my past, changing cities whenever I felt too comfortable. Then I met Jacqueline, construction management professor, who became my mentor. She didn't know my full story. Nobody did, but she saw something in me, helped me understand business structures, regulations, finance, the legal frameworks that bind companies, the knowledge I needed for what came next. I built myself from nothing, my own legitimate consulting business, specializing in construction oversight. Ironic, right? While building my reputation, I kept tabs on them. Online records, business filings, building permits, property transfers. The family business had grown, expanded to 3 states. Bigger projects, bigger risks, bigger corners cut, bigger targets on their backs. Then came the message from Paisley, old neighbor from back home who found me through a mutual connection, wanted to catch up. I almost ignored it. Almost. But something made me respond. We met for coffee. Small talk at first. Then she mentioned my family, how they'd been looking for me, how worried they were, how they told everyone I'd had a mental breakdown. Then she mentioned Everly. Who the fuck is Everly? Paisley's face changed. You don't know your own sister? Sister. Sister. I have no sister. Or so I thought. Paisley showed me an old yearbook photo on her phone. Girl looks about 20. My eyes, my father's nose. Graduated 5 years before me from the same high school. Everly Jenkins, my supposed sister I never knew existed. The pieces clicked. The extra bedroom always kept locked. The hushed arguments that stopped when I entered rooms. Photos missing from albums. Family members who stopped visiting when I was around. They erased her. Why? It took months of digging. Public records. Medical databases I shouldn't have access to. Calling in favors from people who owed me. What I found makes me sick even now. Everly Jenkins, committed to a state psychiatric facility at 19. Diagnosis: delusional disorder with paranoid features. Symptoms included persistent false beliefs about family business practices and refusal to accept established family roles. Sound familiar? She tried to leave. They broke her. I stare at her facility ID photo sometimes. Wonder if she knows she has a brother. Wonder if she's still in there 12 years later. Wonder if she's even still alive. That was the final piece. The match that lit the fuse. I spent the next 6 months preparing, documenting every violation, every code infringement, every tax discrepancy, building a network of contacts in their industry, learning their current projects, their weaknesses, their pressure points, where to push to make it all come tumbling down. Last month I returned home, not as the scared kid who fled in the night, but as the nightmare they created. My father's 60th birthday, big celebration at the country club they could suddenly afford. Everyone who mattered would be there. Their clients, their business partners, their community standing on display. Perfect time to tear it all down. I walked in wearing a suit worth more than my father made in a month back when I was a kid. Confidence born from knowing I held all the cards. Their faces when they saw me. Fuck. I'll never forget them as long as I live. Orlando dropped his glass. Actual shattered glass on the floor. Mother went pale as a ghost. Javier's smile frozen on his face like a mask about to crack. And my father? He just whispered those 7 words. You were never supposed to know about her. Oh, but I do know, Daryl. I know everything. And this is just the beginning. Part 2, coming soon. Buckle up. Update 1. Some asking for updates, ASAP, here you go. Some saying I should let it go and heal, LMAO. You don't heal from what they did. You survive. Then you strike back. The morning after I ran, I woke up at a Greyhound station 300 miles away. $400 to my name. No high school diploma yet. No ID except my birth certificate. No skills except what I'd picked up working summers at the family business. And the constant feeling someone was watching me. That feeling never went away. Not for years. First 6 months were pure survival mode. Slept in shelters when I could. Parked benches when I couldn't. Worked whatever under-the-table jobs I found. Dishwashing, landscaping, whatever paid cash daily. Changed my appearance. Buzz cut. Cheap glasses I didn't need. Anything to look different from the skinny kid who'd fled home. Worst part wasn't the hunger, or the cold, or the constant moving. It was the paranoia. Checking over my shoulder everywhere. Scanning every crowd for Javier's face. For years, I had this recurring nightmare where I'd wake up strapped to a bed with my father standing over me, telling me it was for my own good. Ever been so afraid you throw up from it? That was me. For months. Found out later, they filed a missing persons report, made a big show of concern, told everyone I was mentally unstable, probably even believed it themselves. Easier than admitting the truth, that they were willing to destroy their son's mind rather than lose their control. Year 1. I got my GED. Found a roommate situation. 5 guys in a 2-bedroom apartment. Roaches, leaky ceiling, bathroom door that wouldn't close, but it was mine. Started community college classes whenever I could afford them. Found online forums about surviving family abuse. Learned I wasn't alone. Found others who'd escaped similar situations. We became each other's support system. My anonymous digital family who understood what blood relatives couldn't or wouldn't. Year 3 is when everything changed. Met Jacqueline. She taught this night class I was taking. Something about her reminded me of what adults should be. Patient, observant, actually fucking listened when people talked. She noticed I caught mistakes in the textbook about building codes, asked how I knew, told her a version of the truth, grew up around construction, saw the right and wrong ways to do things. She took me under her wing, helped me understand the business side of construction, the regulations, the financial structures, the legal frameworks, the weapons I'd need. Meanwhile, I kept tabs on my family, created burner accounts to check local news from my hometown, found building permits online, property records, business filings, watched as the Jenkins family business grew, new developments, bigger projects, same old corners being cut, just on a larger scale. Ever see something that makes you so angry you can't breathe? That was me, watching them prosper while I ate ramen in a shitty apartment, while Everly, whoever she was, sat in some institution. The rage became my fuel. Year 5, I had my associate's degree, started freelancing as a construction inspector, learned everything I could about every aspect of the industry, building codes, safety regulations, material standards, financial compliance. Year 7, I started my own consulting business, small at first, one-man operation, but I built a reputation for finding problems others missed, for knowing exactly where to look, for understanding how the system worked and how people worked around it, all the while gathering knowledge, contacts, resources, building my arsenal. Year 8, I started actively investigating my family's business from afar, used different names, different email addresses, reached out to suppliers they worked with, subcontractors, former employees, always careful, always indirect, piecing together the full picture of their operation. What I found would have made 17-year-old me sick. 19 projects across 3 states. Safety violations on every single one. Undocumented workers paid half what they should have been. Materials swapped out for cheaper alternatives after inspections. Permits obtained through relationships with local officials. And the money. So much money. My father's net worth had tripled. New house in the suburbs. Vacation property. Orlando, that piece of shit, now drove an $80,000 truck. Family photos on social media showed them at charity galas. Community pillars. Respected business leaders. All built on lies. Year 10, I was ready to make my move. Had everything I needed. The evidence, the contacts, the financial resources to sustain me through what would come next. Then came the message from Paisley. Found me through LinkedIn. Just a casual, hey, remember me? Been ages, how are you? Almost ignored it. Almost. We met at this coffee shop. Neutral ground. I wore a baseball cap, sunglasses. Ridiculous, yeah. But the fear never fully leaves you. She didn't recognize me at first. 12 years changes a person, especially years like mine. She talked about the old neighborhood, who moved away, who got married, who got divorced. Normal catching up bullshit. Then she mentioned my family, how they'd done so well for themselves, how sad it was about their troubled son who disappeared, how they still brought me up sometimes, wondering where I ended up. Bullshit. Complete bullshit. They weren't sad, they were relieved. Then came the moment that changed everything. She asked if I ever knew Everly. Said it so casually, like asking if I knew any other random person from high school. Who the fuck is Everly? Her reaction told me everything. The way her eyes widened, the way she fumbled with her cup, the way she tried to backtrack, saying maybe she was mixing up families. Took 2 more coffees and some careful questioning to get the truth. Everly Jenkins, 5 years older than me, same high school, used to babysit Paisley sometimes. Sweet girl, she said. Shame what happened to her. What happened to her? Mental health issues, apparently. Had some kind of breakdown right after graduating. Family never talked about it. Paisley's mom said she was in a special facility. Heard she'd never really recovered. That night I couldn't sleep. Searched every database I could access. Public records, medical systems, court filings. Everly Jenkins, committed to state psychiatric facility at 19. Diagnosis: delusional disorder with paranoid features. Manifestations included persistent false beliefs about family business practices and refusal to accept established family roles. They did it before. They locked her away for the same fucking reason they tried to lock me away. For knowing the truth. For refusing to play along. My sister. The sister I never knew I had. The sister they erased from my life. I found her psychiatric evaluation, the intake forms, the commitment papers, my father's signature, my mother's signature, my uncle's signature as a witness, and the facility she was in, still there, still operational, still had an E. Jenkins listed as a current resident. 12 years, 12 fucking years of her life stolen, locked away, medicated, convinced she was crazy for knowing the truth. That night, something in me changed. The revenge wasn't just for me anymore. It was for her too, the sister they took from me before I even knew she existed. I spent the next 2 years finalizing my plan, documenting everything, every code violation, every permit irregularity, every tax discrepancy, built a network of contacts in their industry, former employees willing to talk, suppliers they'd screwed over, compiled it all into one massive, irrefutable case. But documents alone wouldn't be enough. I needed to destroy them personally, needed to see their faces when it all came crashing down. So I watched, learned their routines, their vulnerabilities, their pressure points, where to push to make it all come tumbling down. Orlando, gambling problem he hid from the family. 3 mortgages on his house to cover losses. Javier, drinking that had gotten worse over the years. 2 DUIs swept under the rug through connections. My mother, prescription pills. Lots of them. Different doctors, different pharmacies. My father, the worst of them all. The new family he'd started on the side. The second household no one knew about. The other woman. The 2 kids who had no idea their father was living a double life. I had it all. Every secret. Every weakness. Every pressure point. Then I saw the announcement online. My father's 60th birthday celebration. Big party at the country club. Everyone who mattered would be there. Their business associates. Their community standing on display. Perfect timing. I arrived early, paid the bartender extra to let me wait inside. Watched through the window as they arrived. My mother, thinner than I remembered, holding my father's arm like she might float away without it. Orlando and his wife. Picture-perfect couple, if you didn't know about the gambling debts and the affairs on both sides. Javier, gray now but with the same cold eyes. They looked normal, happy even, like they deserved their success, like they hadn't destroyed 2 lives to get it. That's when I realized they had forgotten me. Not completely, but in all the ways that mattered. I was a footnote in their history, a sad story they told at appropriate moments, the troubled son who couldn't handle the real world. But I had never forgotten them. Not for one single day in 12 years. I straightened my tie, checked the flash drive in my pocket containing everything I'd gathered. 12 years of evidence, 12 years of planning, 12 years of rage condensed into digital form. The moment I walked in, time seemed to stop. Orlando saw me first, the glass slipping from his hand, shattering on the floor. My mother's face draining of color. Javier frozen mid-sentence. And my father, the great Daryl Jenkins, looking at me like he was seeing a ghost. "You were never supposed to know about her," he whispered. But I did know, and I had proof of everything. Every signature on every commitment paper. Every forged document. Every lie they'd told. I held up the flash drive. "This is just the beginning," I told them. "By this time tomorrow, everyone will know exactly who you are." The reckoning had finally come. Update 2. For those saying this is fake or creative writing, whatever helps you sleep at night. Some things you can't make up. Where were we? Right. The party. My father's face when he saw me. That whisper about how I was never supposed to know. The silence after my entrance lasted maybe 15 seconds. Felt like 15 years. Every eye in that country club fixed on me. The prodigal son returns. Except I didn't come back for forgiveness. I came for blood. My father recovered first. Tried to play it cool for his guests. Clapped me on the shoulder like I'd just been away at college, instead of running for my life. His hand trembled. I felt it. The weakness, the fear. Good. He led me to a side room. "Family only," he said to everyone else. Mother, Javier, Orlando followed like the good little soldiers they were. The second that door closed, the masks dropped. Javier hissed at me. Asked what the hell I thought I was doing. Where I'd been, what I wanted. Money. Was that it? How much to disappear again? I just smiled. Let the silence stretch. Watched sweat bead on Orlando's forehead. Watched my mother's hands shake as she clutched her purse like it might save her. Then I placed a tablet on the table. Turned it on. Showed them screenshots of everything I'd compiled. Building code violations, safety reports, tax documents, bank transfers to inspectors. The works, their faces. Fuck. Their faces. Orlando literally staggered backward, hit the wall like his legs couldn't hold him. Mother started that nervous thing with her necklace she always did when scared. Javier's face went from red to white to red again. But my father? He kept his eyes on me. Not on the evidence. On me. Like he was seeing me. Really seeing me. For the first time in his life. I told them exactly what would happen next. How I'd already sent copies to every client they had. Every bank they borrowed from. Every supplier they worked with. How I'd created a website documenting 12 years of fraud that would go live at midnight. How I'd contacted 3 journalists with the full story. Then I dropped the bomb. Asked about Everly. That's when Orlando collapsed. Actually slid down the wall to the floor. Head in his hands. Mother started crying. Not the loud kind. The quiet, broken kind. Javier tried to save it. Said I didn't understand. That it was complicated. Family matters that happened before I was old enough to remember. That Everly had problems. Real problems. That they'd tried everything before institutionalizing her. Lying until the very end. I pulled out the final piece of evidence. Everly's commitment papers next to the ones they'd been preparing for me 12 years ago. Same language. Same symptoms. Same bullshit diagnosis. Side by side, the truth was undeniable. My father aged 20 years in 20 seconds, just deflated. Like someone had punctured him and all the air was escaping. He sank into a chair, asked how I found her, when I was going to see her. That's when I knew I had them. Completely. Totally. Game over. I told them I'd already seen her. Visited the facility 3 weeks earlier. Used my actual ID since I was family. Found her in the garden area. Thin, pale, hair going gray at 34. But her eyes were still there. Still aware. Still knew me somehow when I introduced myself. Her little brother she never got to know. 2 hours we sat there, just talking. About nothing. About everything. About the family. About what they did to us. And then I told her my plan. My family sat there in that country club side room, hanging on my every word as I described Everly's reaction. How she'd smiled. Really smiled. For the first time in 12 years according to the staff. How she'd held my hand and told me to burn it all down. I stood up to leave, told them to enjoy the party, that it would be the last one they'd ever host. The next 24 hours were beautiful chaos. My phone blowing up with texts, calls, voicemails from my family, begging, threatening, offering money, anything to stop what was coming. Too late. The wheels were already turning. By morning, their clients were canceling contracts. By afternoon, suppliers were demanding immediate payment on outstanding invoices. By evening, the bank was calling about irregularities in their accounts. Day 2, the local news picked up the story. Nothing major yet, just questions about permit issues on recent projects. But it was enough to start the whispers, the sideways glances at community events. The beginning of their social death. Orlando cracked first, called me sobbing at 3 a.m., said his wife had taken the kids to her parents' house, said the bank had frozen their accounts, said he'd always felt bad about what happened to Everly, that he was just a kid when it happened, that he didn't understand. I hung up on him. Javier went next, showed up at my hotel. Security caught him trying to get to my room. Drunk, ranting about family loyalty, about ungrateful nephews who didn't understand how the world worked. They removed him. I pressed charges for trespassing. His third offense. No more connections to make it go away. My mother tried the guilt approach. Texts about how she'd always loved me, how she'd fought against committing me, how she'd searched for me for years, how she visited Everly every month without fail. I sent back one message. Then why is Everly surprised to hear you're still alive? Silence after that. My father was the hardest to break. Old school, stubborn, kept trying to salvage things with his connections, called in favors, threatened lawsuits against anyone who backed out of contracts. For almost a week he held on. Then came the second wave, the evidence about his other family. The woman in the next county, the 2 teenage kids who had his eyes, his smile, the mortgage payments, the school tuition, all documented, all sent to my mother. That broke him. Finally, completely. Week 2 of my return, I met them all at the family house. My choice, my terms, no lawyers, no outsiders, just us and the truth. The house looked smaller than I remembered, shabbier, the lawn overgrown, mail piled up on the porch. Inside smelled like cigarettes and desperation. They sat in the living room like prisoners awaiting sentencing. Mother on the couch, staring at nothing. Orlando in the corner, phone constantly buzzing with creditor calls he ignored. Javier pacing, hands shaking without his usual drink. My father in his chair, smaller somehow, diminished. I laid out my demands. Simple, non-negotiable. First, Everly's release. Immediate, with a written statement admitting she was committed under false pretenses, with compensation for 12 years of her life stolen. Second, the business dismantled. Not sold, not transferred, dismantled. Every asset liquidated to pay for the damage they'd caused. Third, public admission of every violation, every corner cut, every bribe paid, every inspection falsified. Fourth, my father to tell his other family the truth, all of it, no more lies. Orlando started arguing, said they'd be ruined, it said I was destroying generations of work, said people would lose jobs, said I'd never get away with it. I just smiled. Asked if he'd checked Twitter lately. Asked if he'd seen the hashtag with their company name that was trending locally. Asked if he'd noticed how many former employees were suddenly sharing stories online. The blood drained from his face. He knew. They all knew. It was already too late. My father finally spoke, asked what I really wanted, said there must be something. Money? Control of what remained of the business? Revenge could only satisfy for so long, he said. Eventually, I'd want something else. I leaned in close, told him I already had what I wanted. I'd stop them from doing to anyone else what they did to Everly, what they tried to do to me. That's when my father broke. Actually cried. First time I'd ever seen it. Told me Everly was never supposed to stay committed that long. Just long enough to adjust her thinking, to accept her role. But then the doctors said she wasn't responding to treatment, was still insisting on her version of events, still refusing to admit she was wrong. 1 year turned to 2, 2 to 5. Eventually, it was easier to leave her there than admit what they'd done. I felt nothing watching him cry. Nothing at all. The next day, I visited Everly again. Told her everything was in motion, that she'd be released within weeks once the paperwork cleared, that she'd have enough money from the settlement to live comfortably for the rest of her life. She asked what would happen to the family. I told her they were finished. The business collapsing, their reputation destroyed, their finances in ruins. She just nodded, said that sounded fair. 3 weeks later, I helped Everly move into her new apartment. Small place, nothing fancy, but hers, all hers, with big windows that let in lots of light, with no locks on the outside of doors, with no one telling her what to think or believe. Last I heard, Orlando was working at a big box store, night shift, divorced, living in a studio apartment. Javier lost his license after the DUI charges stuck. My mother moved in with her sister 2 states away. My father's second family wanted nothing to do with him after the truth came out. He's alone in a 1-bedroom rental, working as a cashier. Invisible. The Jenkins family business? Gone. The name toxic in the industry. The legacy destroyed. Was it worth 12 years of planning? Of waiting? Of building myself up just to tear them down? Every fucking second. Everly and I have dinner every Sunday now, making up for lost time, learning to be siblings. Sometimes we talk about them. Mostly we don't. They've taken enough from us already. So that's it. That's the story. Not about forgiveness, not about healing, about justice, about consequences, about making sure they finally paid for what they did. To anyone out there with family like mine, sometimes the only way forward is to burn it all down and walk away from the ashes.